Welcome, everyone, to another edition of The Travel Show with your host, Ted Blank of Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventure. And true to his name, he is on a very, very nice tour, and it seems like it's luxury, and I can't wait to learn all about it. Ted, how have you been?
I've been doing well. We even have a little adventure thrown in on this particular trip.
Oh, so it wasn't just luxury travel. You had an
It was
adventure.
kind of the combination of the two.
Oh, well, I know we're going to probably talk in depth at some point about this whole trip, but I am very interested in hearing about where you're calling from now.
Well, I am in the city of Salvador de Bahia, which is in Brazil in South America. And
Wow.
so I am on a cruise, and I'm not taking the whole thing, but it's the world cruise of the Regent Seven Seas Mariner. And so this particular ship left Miami on January 7th, and it will be back in Miami at the end of June. So there are about 250 people on this ship who
Oh,
got on in January, and they'll be getting off and going home in June. I am not one of them. I'm only on for a short period of time, but it's been a very, very nice cruise, beautiful weather. I understand that it's a little chilly at home in Minnesota these days, so nice time to escape.
so when you say that you are hopping off the ship, are there other people that might hop on at a different port? Like, will people come on the ship in Brazil?
Yeah, so
Oh,
the neat thing about world cruises is that you don't have to take the whole thing if you don't want to. So this particular 6-month cruise is divided up into about 10 different what they call segments. So we join the ship in Miami, and we'll get off in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in a couple days. Then some people will get on in Rio. They're actually going to stay on for a month. They're going to visit Argentina. They're going to actually go to Antarctica, and they're going to come back and visit Chile and the Chilean fjords, and they'll get off the ship in Santiago, Chile in about 30 days. Then the ship makes a sharp left turn and it heads across the Pacific Ocean. So it's actually going to stop at Easter Island, where those famous statues
sure.
are, for 2 days. It's going to stop at the most obscure place, I think, on planet Earth, which is Pitcairn Island, which is where the mutiny on the Bounty took place.
Oh,
And the descendants of the mutineers still live there. And then it's going to head through Tahiti and French Polynesia to Australia. People can get off there, and new people will get on. And then it heads up through New Zealand, Australia, Indonesia to Singapore. People can get off there, up along the coast of Asia, so Vietnam and Thailand and Cambodia and China, to Tokyo, where people can get off. And then the ship cruises around the islands of Japan, crosses the Pacific Ocean, and comes down through Alaska before it gets to San Francisco, California, where people can get off, and then San Francisco through Panama Canal and Caribbean back to Miami. So lots of segments. They range on this particular cruise anywhere from 17 to about 45 days. And so you can take one segment, you can take a couple segments together, or if you're really adventurous, you can do the whole 6-month trip.
oh my goodness. Do you know anybody on the ship that is taking the whole?
Yeah, there are about 250
Oh,
people
there are.
who are doing
Okay.
it. Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
well, the ship carries 700 people. Our ship does. So about a third of the people are going the whole way around, and it's a very eclectic mix. There are some folks who are doing it because it's a great way to get away from winter, and so it's kind of their snowbirding experience.
Sure.
They get on a ship and off they go, and they get back and winter's over. There are a lot of people though who are surprisingly a little bit younger than you might think, and maybe they're mid 60s, upper 60s, early 70s. And they view this as really an opportunity to kind of check everything off the bucket list. I mean, some of these places that you're going to go, if you're going to do these in individual trips, my goodness, you'd be flying back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And so in a little bit of a longer period of time, you can enjoy it in a very civilized way. You travel from place to place on a beautiful ship
Hmm.
and get to experience New Zealand and Australia and Tahiti and Japan and all these interesting places that people would really like to go on one cruise. And so there's a nice mix of people who are doing that. And then the other 2/3 of the people get on and get off in each segment.
So when you talk about the people that are doing this, I mean, how does that even work, Ted? Are they renting out their houses or, there's a lot of
Well, it's
moving parts
interesting.
to that.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts. The world cruises are put on sale several years in advance. And interestingly enough, they'll often sell out very, very quickly, like within a day or two. And so people who are thinking about a world cruise, it's really important to think about it well in advance and to start to think about some of those things, like what do we do with our house? There's one couple who I chatted to who have a son and daughter who just got married. And so they're looking for houses. But while they look for houses, they have a 6-month free lease on mom and dad's house. Other people do what people do in Minnesota when they go south for the winter. They just kind of close the house down and the neighbors or a friend kind of keeps their eye on it. And when they come back, it's there and ready for them.
When you talked about all those places that this cruise is going to, you're right. To try to go and visit all those places in a lifetime, you couldn't really. I mean, if you started in your 70s.
No. Yeah. And it is nice because this cruise is on a company called Regent Seven Seas Cruises that we've talked about before. And they include all the shore excursions in the price of the cruise. And so in each port, you have a really nice selection of different things you can do. Some of them are very kind of sedate, like a city tour that's maybe by motor coach with a little bit of walking. And we also did some really kind of adventurous things. We went whitewater rafting down a river on an island in the Caribbean called Dominica. Tiny little island, population's about 30,000. Really fun thing to do. We went on a boat ride up the Amazon River through some of the little tributaries and channels at the mouth of the Amazon and had a chance to see how people live there. We got off and we walked through the rainforest, which was really interesting. I got to hold a tarantula, which didn't need to do that for very long, but I made a new friend in the city of Belém. And so there's a nice variety of things to do. Today, we're going to take a walking tour of the city. I guess there's quite a spectacular cathedral that we're going to see and some historic buildings, and then have a little time to, walk around and shop and have a cup of coffee and enjoy the city. So there's something different to do in every port. And, some people just one day they decide, we're not going to get off. We're just going to stay on the ship and relax. And, when you have several months on a cruise, everything comes at a very different pace than maybe we're used to when we take sort of a 1 week or a 2 week vacation.
That is nice to know, especially if you're going to be gone that long. You don't want to get exhausted. So how many different cruise lines offer a world cruise, or is this pretty unique?
About half the cruise lines offer world cruises. And most cruises offer kind of something similar, which would maybe be something called like a grand voyage that might be 60 or 70 days long. So pretty much every cruise line offers them. And I think most people on this ship will have cruised before, and they will have a pretty good idea of what they like and what they don't like in cruising, because it's a commitment. 6 months on a cruise ship, you got to know what you're getting into and you got to know what you like to do. So there are very few people here who are taking their very first cruise, but there are a couple.
Really?
In fact, several people I've talked to who first cruise ever, and they're doing the full world cruise, and good for them because they want to see all these places, and they all seem to be enjoying themselves. Everyone seems to be having a really good time and enjoying it. And people get into their niches. Some people are early risers, so they like to get up early and have breakfast on the deck and then just kind of take it easy, maybe play some trivia or put a puzzle together. There's some pretty sedate pursuits in here. Other people like to do yoga. The trivia contests are very popular on the days the ship is at sea. Beautiful swimming pool. There's a nice gym, beautiful spa, several dining choices. And that's, I think, something that's really important on a longer cruise too, because no matter how good the food was in any restaurant, you might get bored with it after a month or 2 months. And so there's several different dining choices on here, from a very nice upscale French restaurant to the deck barbecue. And so depending on how the mood strikes you, you can pick and choose and pretty much do whatever you want to each night. So it makes the experience on board the ship enjoyable and diverse and varied, which is important for that long of a trip.
Yeah, no kidding. Ted, when you mentioned, though, that some people, this is their first cruise and they chose the world cruise, as a travel advisor, I don't know that you would recommend that, right?
If somebody wanted to, I think we'd have a long conversation about it and really make sure they understood kind of what they were getting themselves in for. But, not the worst idea in the world, I think. People are celebrating, milestones like retirements and things like that. And, I had one couple and both of them just retired, and they said, you know what, we're gone. We're 6 months. We're disconnecting. We're disconnecting from our old jobs, kind of our old lives. And this is how we're launching ourselves into retirement with our first big cruise. And so who's to argue with that?
Well, I have to say, I am very intrigued by this, and you really are hitting all of the hot spots, it seems, if you're on this cruise for just the 6 months. I mean, I guess I thought that it would take longer to see so much of the world.
Yeah, actually, some of the shortest world cruises are about 90 days long. So some of the short ones are 90. This is about the longest one that's out there,
Okay.
this 6-month trip. And so some are going to be maybe a little more of an express version. You know, the ship's going to go faster and not stop at quite as many ports. And so if you have a little less time and you want to get a flavor for it, you could certainly do that. But I would really recommend, if people are intrigued by the idea of discovering parts of the world that aren't necessarily easy to get to by sea, to really think about doing one of the segments. If I had more time, I would certainly stay on board. It would be fun to go to Argentina. It would be neat to go to Antarctica. I've never been there. Chile. We did get to cross the equator, which was kind of a fun thing. And they have a big ceremony when you cross the equator. King Neptune comes out from the deep, and he sentences everyone to be covered in whipped cream and thrown into the water. And so it's an old maritime tradition. And then you have to kiss a dead fish.
Is this
so? I didn't get whipped cream, but I did kiss a dead fish. So
I think you got
I have
the
officially
short
crossed
straw.
the equator by sea. I did, yes. But I have officially crossed the equator by sea. So apparently I'm what used to be called a polywog.
Oh.
And now I'm something else, but I don't remember what it is.
Okay, well, you are something else,
But I have
Ted.
a certificate now, so I can put it up on the wall.
I can't wait. Ted, so when you crossed the equator, were you at sea when you did that?
Yes, we were. We had left a place called Devil's Island, which we will definitely talk a little bit about more in a future show. But it was a French prison colony off the coast of French Guyana. And now it's abandoned and it's like a national park. And we were on our way to the city of Belém in northern Brazil, which is where the mouth of the Amazon was. And so we crossed the equator when the ship was sailing.
And is it an imaginary line, or how did you know you were crossing it besides all this hoopla?
It was all the hoopla.
Okay.
You could actually probably turn on your cabin TV. They have like a navigational chart that you could watch on one of the channels. So it probably would have told you that you were exactly there. But yes, the equator, of course, is an imaginary line.
So, Ted, when you talked about the TV in your room, what are the accommodations like?
Yeah, so this particular ship, one of the reasons that it's really well suited for longer cruises is that the staterooms are larger.
Mm-hmm.
And so the smallest stateroom, I would say it would be kind of a mini suite. So you have, a large queen bed with a curtain divider that separates out a sitting area that has a sofa and some chairs, has a nice outdoor balcony, tons of storage space in the closet. I mean, it's as big as my closet at home, and a nice oversized bathroom. But a lot of people, of course, want a little more space. So there are suites, like full suites, that will have separate dining areas in them as well. And they have excellent room service on the ship. So if you don't want to get dressed and go to breakfast, you can have it delivered to you right in your room and enjoy it in your room. And all the staterooms have beautiful balconies. Some are a little smaller, some are a little bigger. Some of the staterooms actually have butlers with them. So on a long trip, that can kind of be nice. It can kind of be a little bit of a stress reliever. So lots of choices of accommodations, but all generously sized, plenty of storage space, and to spend a couple months in, not too bad. Actually, not too shabby.
No, and when you talk about the fact that, some people go away for the winter for up to 6 months, it really is a different way of looking at how we spend our winter.
It is. It is, absolutely. And a lot of people who go someplace south for the winter will stay in a smaller apartment or a condo that's a lot smaller than where they live normally at home. And this is kind of the same thing, only the condo floats and moves from place to place.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. So when you're floating and moving, are you following, I know you have to cross the ocean at certain points, but otherwise, are you kind of hugging the shore or around some of these continents, or how is this working?
Yeah, so we sailed through the Caribbean. So we sailed through some of the islands.
Yes.
We sailed near Puerto Rico and some of the southern Caribbean islands. And then there was some stretches of open ocean. But once we hit Brazil, we've pretty much been kind of sailing along the coast. Most of the time you can see land from the ship. Obviously, when the ship gets to the Pacific Ocean and makes a left turn and heads out there will be several days where there's nothing, low land out there. So it's a mix of coastal sailing and ocean sailing. on this cruise.
But there's also lots to do on this ship, it sounds like.
Yeah, during the day, there is plenty to do, plenty to keep yourself occupied. I'm on my second book. I have one more to try to read here in the next couple days. So they have a nice library, and I'm trying to catch up on my reading. So that's been my thing to do. But there are plenty of activities. You can listen to some very interesting lectures about a variety of topics. There's really nice entertainment in the evening. Plenty to do.
I love it, Ted. Well, I just have a feeling that a lot of people listening are saying to themselves, you know what, I'd like to learn more about this. And, you know, maybe if the whole 6 months isn't for me, certainly a big portion of this might be. I mean, I just think about the whole sailing to Australia instead of a long flight. That would be so much nicer.
Yeah, or even just sailing one way and exploring it and then flying home.
Yes.
And, you know, you cut that amount of flying in half, which, you know, flying does tend to be one of the more unpleasant parts of travel. So this is a way to avoid that. Well,
Ted, if people would like to get a hold of you or someone from your team and learn more, how could they do that?
Yeah, so the most of my team is actually working right now while I'm out of town, but sometimes they'll be gone and I'll be working as well. So it all works out. But you can give us a call at 651-964-8245. You can visit our website, tedblanktravel.com, or swing by our office in downtown Hudson, Wisconsin, 206 Locust Street. And we're open for walk-ins Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
I love it. Ted, bon voyage, or whatever they say. I hope you have a great rest of your trip, and we will get caught up soon.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Take
Wonderful.
care.
Thank you. This show is called The Travel Show with your host, Ted Blank of Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventure. And you are listening to AM 1460 and FM 97.7 KDWA in Hastings. This travel show has been brought to you by Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventures.